morning, good afternoon, and good evening. You are watching the Paris Fintech Forum Communities video interview series. I'm Elliott Gotkine, and today I'm joined by the co-founder and CEO of Remitly, Matt Oppenheimer. Great to have you with us.
Great to be here, Elliot. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so look, before we get cracking, we are going to learn a little bit more about Remitly. So, Matt, I think you're almost 15 years old, which I guess is kind of almost ancient by fintech standards. So tell me what the company was to begin with when you founded it, and what it is today. I assume it's evolved, but more or less with the same mission.
Yeah. So I'll start when I founded it. I've traveled to close to 100 countries, lived and worked on 3 continents. And most poignantly, I was living in Nairobi, Kenya, and I was head of mobile and internet banking initiatives for Barclays Bank Kenya. And I just saw how expensive, how inconvenient it was to send money internationally myself. And I saw that same problem for a lot of my Kenyan friends. And so moved back to the US, as you said, coming up on 15 years ago, with the idea that there, had to be a better way to leverage digital devices, mobile phones specifically. Although when I started the business, only 30 or 40% of Americans had mobile phones. Um, so saw that trend, obviously had smartphones specifically, saw that trend start to emerge. And there were a bunch of pivots along the way that I can go into at a later date, but we've had a lot of success and we've also broadened our vision. So our vision now is transform lives. It's very mission driven with trusted financial services that transcend borders. And that financial services that transcend borders is the biggest kind of expansion of our vision. And if you fast forward close to 15 years later, we have 2,800 employees across the globe. We are publicly listed on NASDAQ. We went public in September of 2021. We did over 300 million in revenue in Q1 alone. We grew 34% year on year, and we have about 8 million quarterly active users across the globe. Again, serving about 170 countries now. So, and yet, last thing I'll say is we're 2% of the market. So lots of room to grow, not only in international payments and remittances, but broad financial services for our customers.
And just to be clear, of course, your platform enables people to send money digitally, of course, but presumably also, if necessary, for people to get access to that money as cash at the other end.
Yes, at the other end is an important distinction. So customers link their bank account, their debit card, et cetera, to our app, and then they can send to 4 billion bank accounts or mobile wallets, which is the way most funds are distributed. But we also have over 400,000 cash pickup locations across the globe. So if folks need cash, they can receive cash. But it really depends on the market. Some countries it's mobile wallet, some it's bank account, some it's what's called home delivery, some it's cash pickup. And the important thing is that we enable customers to get funds the way they want to and get it quickly. So 93% of our transactions are delivered in less than an hour, and that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that takes a lot of infrastructure and complexity to build.
And where are you seeing most growth right now?
It's a mix. If you look at the countries we serve, there's North America, which includes US, Canada, that continues to grow even though we've been at it for 15 years. Europe and continues to be a growth market. Australia is a significant amount of remittances originate from Australia, and then newer markets that we've turned on live, within the last couple of years, like the UAE, have also been nice. So the way our business works is it's hard to build trust, but once we've built trust with new customers, you add, what we call cohorts of new customers, and that continues to expand and grow the business in the long term.
I had a little play around on your website, very, very superficially. I tried a number of exchange options and they all came back with zero fees. So I'm just wondering, where are the main areas? What's the kind of, in terms of margins for Remitly? Where do you make most of your money?
Yeah. Yeah. So a big part of, why, again, the pain point I saw, and then a lot of my Kenyan friends, is it has been just historically too expensive to send money. And so um, I'll use take rate in this context, but it's not perfect. And I'll tell you why in a minute. When we started the business, it was 8+% if you look at the World Bank data, to send a $250 transaction. For us, it's in the 2 to 2.5% in terms of overall take rate. And in some countries that has a fee. In most countries, it's just foreign exchange, and we give folks obviously a really transparent, locked in foreign exchange rate. That's the business model is fee and foreign exchange.
Okay. No, no, I don't want to talk politics specifically, not least because everything could change tomorrow, and this isn't going to go out for a week or two. But I mean, look, whether it's tariffs, the economy, or immigration, especially with regards to the United States, what one assumes you do see an impact. I mean, how is the political backdrop, if I can put it that way, in the United States and the geopolitical backdrop globally impacting a business like yours?
Yeah, yeah, great question, Elliot. I think that if you look at our business overall, first, we're very diversified. So I mentioned that we're in 170 countries, but we now have 35% of our revenue coming from outside of the United States, which outside of the United States continues to grow faster than the United States. So that's helpful because as I have run this business for close to 15 years and seen various election cycles and political environments, not only in the US, but around the globe, that diversification really helps. The second component is if you think about who our customer base is, they're linking their bank account or their debit card, which signals a more established presence in the country that they've moved to. We don't originate, we don't accept cash from customers, which surprisingly is how a lot of remittances are still sent. Um, and that customer base signals kind of a less documented and maybe more vulnerable to some of the policy changes that you were alluding to. And then the last is, if you look at just the movement of people across the globe, it's important to put into context just how how many individuals. There are 250 million folks that live and work outside the country they're born, 40 million in the US alone. We have 8 million quarterly active users. And if you look at it from a global standpoint, I mentioned we're 2% of the $2 trillion that's sent every year. And so there's just a very large set of customers that we can serve. And even with some of the short term changes in terms of policies around immigration and the ability for people to move to a new country, in the backdrop of how many customers we can serve, we haven't actually seen as much of an impact as you might think. And, we feel optimistic about being able to continue to grow and serve customers.
Okay. So we've heard about Remitly. Let's now learn more about Matt. So, Matt, you mentioned you used to work for Barclays, and I think before that I saw you were a consultant. How does running a business for you compared with working for one?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So my journey, I was a consultant, and interestingly, not strategy consulting. I was doing investment consulting. So what that meant was working for large endowments and foundations to help with their asset allocation, with their investment manager selection, and I focused on venture capital, private equity. So I was kind of on the other side of the table with VCs, um, spending policy, things like that. And so. Um, the fascinating journey that I think is actually somewhat unique is going from that very, very not only working for a company, to your point, Elliot, but also kind of as far away from the ultimate end customer as you can get in terms of operating and delivering a service to an end consumer. When I was at Cambridge Associates, which I loved, by the way, I learned it was the best overview out of the gate as a college graduate. And going from that to now starting running a business that's serving consumers, um, and especially the running element, to your point, has been an amazing journey, being able to see things from 30,000 feet down to 10 feet. And it is different when you're running a company in the sense that one, it's kind of your baby in the sense that um, there's just such a deep care. So, and in the early days of starting a business, just like the early days of having a baby, it's very fragile and needs a lot of care and different engagement than a more mature company. But throughout the whole journey, there's just a different feeling of care around being a founder and owner of a company that I think has driven me to um, overcome obstacles and deliver amazing things for our customers.
Well, your baby Remitly is actually the same age as my son, so I can testify to how they become slightly less fragile as they get older. But I mean, you talked about being close to the customer now. I was reading that you like nothing more than actually turning up at your customer care center and actually answering customer calls yourself. What's been the best and the worst call that you've had while being down there on the front line?
Oh, so many to choose from because, as you said, I do love it. Um, Sending money internationally is really hard. And so when customers contact our customer support site, um, and I would say honestly for other international payments customer support sites, I think companies have good intent. There's just a lot of friction that can happen, whether it's in payment acceptance, whether it's in a lot of the risk systems, to where and I can go into that in more detail, or the uh, funds disbursement. That's where a lot of the kind of customer contacts come from. So one's vivid memory, and my mind always goes to things that we can do better. So I'll start there. That was an especially painful call. We had an issue with it was a Canadian transaction, and a customer was sending money to his family back in India, and the way that we had one of our our payment processors in Canada, basically had a bug in their system to where they did a duplicate basically funds draw from the customer. Right, happened for a very narrow segment of customers, specifically because of this payment processor. Um, The customer said, "Hey, listen, I'm sending $1,000, which is a lot of money, and you've taken $2,000 out of my account." And the customer explained to me how he could not pay for, gas, how he could not pay for groceries, could not pay for rent. He needed those funds back immediately. And because of how old and antiquated a lot of the payment systems are domestically that we have to rely on, and then internationally, which we're rebuilding, it takes sometimes like days to get those funds back into that customer's account. And that stuck with me even as we think about, like, how we drove our product roadmap, in the sense that, we now have leveraged, some, new and innovative ways of working with local payment rails to instantly get funds back into account, let alone preventing the issue from happening in the first place in that Canadian example. But
He got his
that was
money
one
back
of a very
quickly?
yeah, we got his money back quickly, and
Okay.
now we get it back even faster is the point.
Okay. Right.
And because in that instance, it did take a few days to get it back, and that wasn't
Right.
okay. And so since then, we've driven improvements that help customers get their funds back even quicker. And then there are
And
so many examples. Go ahead.
yeah, no, sorry, Matt. I was just going to say, just because we need to move on to the next section, but we've talked about your running the business and how that's different from working for a business. But of course, it's not just running a business that you enjoy doing, but you also enjoy running. Full stop. I mean, you're a bit of a marathon runner, half a marathon runner. What tell us about that and how that I don't know how you find the time for it and how it helps or hinders you in your day job.
Yeah, sure. I uh, I think so. I run one marathon a year for the last 8 years, and then I recently switched after doing the Boston Marathon to one half marathon a month, just because it's better for my body and I can do a kind of wider range of physical activity. Um, it's very helpful for my mental health. It's very helpful for just my energy level. But most importantly, I think it's also indicative of the fact that entrepreneurship, I think, is very much the
Yeah.
idea is easy. To some extent, the strategy is easy. Grit and tenacity is what is hard. And I think that my running is just a example of kind of where I index high when it comes to grit, tenacity, and perseverance.
I was sure you were going to say that running a company is a marathon, not a sprint, but you managed to avoid that. So thank you. So look, Matt, a key part of this interview is to get your take on the future of finance. But first, we are going to take a very quick break, after which we are going to continue our conversation with the co-founder and CEO of Remitly, Matt Oppenheimer. Welcome back. And don't forget, if you're not already a full member of our community, everything you need to join can be found at www.parisfintechforum.com. Okay, so now, Matt, let's talk about the future of finance. So, I touched on this earlier about the specific impact on Remitly, but look, we've got wars, tariffs, migration policies, all of these. One would expect to impact the money transfer industry. Let's say, I mean, when times are uncertain, do people send more money home, or do they send less?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. What you actually see, given that most of our customers are sending money home for basic needs in terms of household expenses, tuition, emergency, medical expenses, etc. When there are disasters, I always say sending our customers sending money is important, but it's especially important during times of any sort of disaster. And so you see that during natural disasters, you see that during a lot of different elements. Customers, it's even more important that they send that money home, and we make it easier during those periods. And we offer things like lower transaction fees, no fees, and help our customers get money home when it's most important during those instances.
Right, and I know you said that your company only has about 2% of the pie, I think, in North America. But I mean,
Yeah,
if migrants, but as a whole, the pie itself. I mean, if migrants are being deported, presumably they send less money home because they've now gone home, or they're outside of the country or outside of the United States. Is that something that is noticeable in the industry, or is it early days for that?
Yeah, I think that again, the news cycle, the focus on that, there's a lot of focus. But if you actually take a step back and you look at who the individuals are that are of risk of deportation versus who our customers are, when you look at a more banked population because they're linking their debit card and their bank account, combined with the fact the size of the market, we really haven't seen an impact. Might be different for other money transmitters that focus on different segments, but for us, the size of the market, the diversification of countries we serve and the specific type of customers we serve have meant that we haven't seen an impact.
Okay. And in your sector, I guess, there's also been talk about the potential for stable coins to have an impact. I mean, if
Yeah,
people are using stable coins, one assumes they're going to be sending less kind of money or cash directly. I mean, how big a concern is that for the industry
yeah.
and others that kind of are in the traditional remittance business?
Yeah, I think stablecoins are an incredibly exciting space. I think there are ways for us to potentially leverage that when it comes to our treasury and cash management systems, especially with kind of more exotic, longer tail currencies. And I think there are some interesting consumer use cases. So we're excited about that space, and I think it can help accelerate the vision that we have.
And so, just to be clear, that this is something that you are exploring to possibly use.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay. And I mean, artificial intelligence, of course, another big a trend, not just from last year, but of course still this year. A lot of excitement surrounding the industry, a lot of money going into it. I mean, how is AI affecting both the back end of the way say yourselves go about your business, and also the consumer facing side within the industry?
yeah. Again, an area, if you look at AI, that I am incredibly excited about. And I will important context for listeners and for you, Elliot. Some of the earlier iterations of crypto, some other technologies, I am not one to get caught up in hype cycles. I always come back to what is the benefit that a technology can add to a customer, either a business or an end consumer. Stablecoin and AI, incredibly exciting. So, an AI, the way we're leveraging it is, as you can guess, uh, a virtual agent that we've built, which is um, incredible. And we're adding the number of use cases. So when customers do need to contact us, although I will miss taking customer calls
I was
directly,
going to
I'll still
say,
do that. I'll still do that.
you can turn yourself
But
into an
there's
avatar.
yeah, exactly. But it is unbelievable. The customer satisfaction scores, the ability to just more efficiently and effectively serve customers. So that's one. We've then taken that and we've embedded it into things like WhatsApp. So customers can start to engage with us in a way that is more of a chat-based engagement as opposed to a more legacy, user experience, which I think some customers will want over time. There's ways that we've given access to AI tools for our engineers to be able to build and deploy code faster. I could keep going through the list. And obviously, the right controls, the right security, the right elements need to be in place, especially with a company our scale and size. But I think that can exist. And I think that AI is going to fundamentally change not only how we do business, but how we live our lives day to day across the globe. It's amazing.
I was reading, I think, in June that Jeff Bezos, the of course founder of Amazon, was telling employees that some of them will be losing their jobs eventually as a result of AI. I mean, what's the impact like to be in the industry in terms of, for example, customer service agents across the industry? Presumably, you're going to need fewer of them.
Yeah, I think it's more. I view it more of an accelerant to help people do what they can uniquely do best. And so, even when I was in our customer support site in the Philippines not that long ago, I was seeing our agents use LLM models and other things to be able to draft customer responses more effectively. You still need a human in the loop for a lot of reasons, but I think that it'll help them do their jobs more effectively and more efficiently. And it was great to see our CS sites using AI in a variety of ways.
Okay, now just a slightly different topic. It's fallen out of fashion a bit, I suppose, to talk about sustainable finance, ESG, and having a positive impact on the world around us. Is that a mistake? Should this still be very much a focus of fintechs and financial services companies?
Yeah, I don't. It's a timely question, Elliot, because yesterday we actually issued our 2024 social impact report. By the time this airs, it'll probably be a few weeks, prior. But I think that importantly, for Remitly, when you look at things like our social impact report, it has been important and it continues to be important for us in terms of how we measure the impact that we make to our customers' lives and the ecosystem by which we operate.
And I mean, what's the best way to make fintech and finance work for everyone?
Well, I think that there's ways of making sure that we're measuring things like how much we've saved customers in overall um, transfers over $1 billion, which is unbelievable. There are ways to make sure that we are measuring the impact that we're making from a environmental standpoint. Although because we don't operate large factories and things like that, that's still important to measure, but less material of a lever for us to move. And there's ways of looking at the demographic of the customers that we serve and making sure that we are, taking a lens of who are we helping and making sure that we're helping, during times where there are natural disasters, where there are things where folks that are more vulnerable are getting the support from us. So you can read more about that in the report, but it captures because, if you measure what matters, it captures the impact that we're making in our customers' lives, which ultimately matters not only because it's the right thing to do, but I think you see this specifically in financial services. Fintech's still catching up a bit, to be honest. The business comes down to trust. And the way to build sustainable long term trust is to authentically do what's right for customers and their communities, especially when they need it the most. And so that trust also drives our brand. It drives word of mouth. It drives further growth. So there's a reason that we focus on things like social impact. And ultimately, that report is the output and the capturing of what we do every day, which is just a core part of our business.
Okay, all right. So look, Matt, it's time now for our round of rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Ready?
Just one word answers is all I'm looking for, and I will start the clock. And when the buzzer goes off, we will stop. Okay,
Perfect.
so what fintech segment, in your view, has the biggest potential over the next 5 years?
International payments.
What is the biggest pain point in your everyday financial life that you'd like to see resolved? I think I know the answer to that one.
Credit on a global basis.
Are bank bosses ready for the AI revolution?
Some.
Are customers ready?
Yes.
Have regulators in the EU and US kept pace with all the new behaviors and possibilities that we're seeing in the financial services industry?
Varies.
Have you personally ever invested in crypto?
Yes.
Are physical points of sales part of the future of finance?
Yeah.
Are bank branches part of the future of finance?
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 the most likely, 1 the least likely, what are the chances that in the next 10 years, one of the neobanks will be as profitable as a top tier legacy bank? So between 1 and 10.
7.
CBDC, central bank digital currencies, will become a mainstream reality in the US and EU or EU.
No.
And finally, you'll be able to open a crypto. All right, we'll just finish this question. You'll be able to open a crypto account at a top tier bank.
9.
Great. Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for our round of rapid fire questions and for our conversation. So I really just want to thank you, Matt Oppenheimer, the co-founder and CEO of Remitly, for taking the time to join me today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Elliot.
And for everyone watching, we will be back again next time with another big name from the world of finance and technology. We do hope you'll be able to join us again then. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the Paris Fintech Forum YouTube channel and to follow us on X at Paris Fin Forum. That's all for now. See you next time. Bye bye.